Hello?
Hello, Alice.
Yeah, for God's sake. It's like Nina Myskow has never, ever, ever, ever in her whole 70-odd years or however old she is, she's never had 80, all right then, never had a racist thought in her life. I mean, for goodness sake,
I don't understand what are you trying to say, Alice?
Well, I'm not trying to say it. I'm telling you, in your life, are you trying to say, hand on heart, growing up, you've never, ever had a racist thought in your life?
But what's the relevance of the question, Alice? Help us understand.
Well, I'm trying to answer the question. The fact is, she was talking about the fact that it was racist to ask about the colour, what colour the child is going to be. There's nothing racist about it. And by the way, again, Jeremy, in case you remember, or maybe you don't, I'm from India originally. So I'm a woman of colour. And if somebody asked that question, I wouldn't take offence.
Alice,
Okay.
Alice,
there are two schools of thought on that, and I quite agree with you, Alice.
Alice, I was not taking offence at that. I was quoting it, saying that it was not trashing the royal family by implying that they were racist.
And Christo said...
It was Christo who said it.
Christo said the tone and the framing is what was indicting them.
Blame Christo, not me. Because he's the one who's saying what you're saying.
Alice, have we got it all wrong, Alice?
No, I've not got it all wrong.
No, have we got it all wrong?
Anyway, the question was, should Harry spend more time in the UK? No, he shouldn't.
Okay.
He was completely disloyal to this country, to the monarchy, we are a monarchy. And he was an essential part of that monarchy, and he completely let them down, let the country down.
Okay.
And, as far as I'm concerned, for Nina Myskow to sit there as though she knows, he was hounded out of the country. He was hounded by the press.
Yes, he was. He was hounded. The pile-on that Meghan, particularly, always blamed the woman, got for years and years and years is akin to what Professor Jason Arday had. She was piled on for years and years and years and years, and it still goes.
We're going to move on. Thanks, Alice.
Welcome to today's episode, everyone. I am so glad you are tuning in with us today because we have a lot to unpack. And honestly, it is one of those conversations that just needs to be had, whether people want to hear it or not. We are taking a deep dive into some recent live television moments that really set the internet ablaze and got people talking about a subject that seems to never truly fade away from the headlines. If you were watching the Jeremy Vine show recently, you might have caught a moment that left a lot of viewers gasping, reflecting, or maybe just nodding along in intense agreement, depending on where you stand on the whole situation. Broadcaster and commentator Nina Myskow took a remarkably bold, unvarnished stand on live television, speaking up about the media's long-standing treatment of Meghan Sussex, and she did not pull her punches whatsoever. It is always fascinating when someone on a mainstream British panel show decides to break from the usual talking points and just lay down what they believe is the absolute, unadulterated truth. Nina Myskow looked right into the discussion and drew a direct, chilling comparison that caught so many people off guard. She brought up the intense, systematic, and relentless level of public and media scrutiny that Meghan Sussex has faced for years and years and years, comparing that overwhelming pile-on to the tragic, immense pressure and scrutiny experienced by figures like the late Cambridge professor Jason Arday. Now, when you hear a comparison like that made on national television, it instantly changes the temperature of the room, doesn't it? People freeze up a bit because it forces everyone to confront the actual human cost of what we so casually label as media commentary or public discourse. Nina Myskow essentially pointed out that what Meghan Sussex has been subjected to is not just standard celebrity gossip or regular royal reporting, but a sustained, multi-year campaign of hostility that reaches a dangerous level of public pressure. To sit on a live television panel, knowing how contentious the topic of Meghan Sussex is in the United Kingdom, and to declare that this level of scrutiny is akin to something so severe, takes a phenomenal amount of courage. The host and the other guests looked visibly stunned for a moment, which is usually what happens when someone decides to say the quiet part out loud on daytime television. You could almost feel the collective intake of breath across the studio as those words hung in the air, forcing everyone watching at home to pause and ask themselves what kind of environment we have actually created in modern media. When you look back at the timeline of everything Meghan Sussex has endured since entering the public eye in Britain, it is hard to deny that the sheer volume of negative press has been unprecedented. Day after day, week after week, headline after headline, every single action, gesture, choice of clothing, or statement was picked apart with a level of malice that felt deeply personal and completely relentless. Nina Myskow was essentially saying that no single human being is built to absorb that amount of constant, unfiltered toxicity without it taking a massive, destructive toll on their mental and physical well-being. And honestly, can anyone genuinely look at the past few years of headlines and say she is wrong about that? It's a heavy thing to realize, but the reality of modern media culture is that it often pushes people straight to the edge before anyone even considers pumping the brakes. The comparison to Jason Arday is particularly poignant and devastating when you think about the broader context of public scrutiny, structural hostility, and the mental burden carried by prominent figures who dared to exist outside traditional boundaries. Jason Arday's story is one of incredible resilience, a man who overcame immense odds to become one of the youngest Black professors at Cambridge University, only for the world to lose him far too soon under circumstances that highlighted the terrifying weight of public pressure and institutional expectations. When Nina Myskow connected those dots on live television, she was reminding us all that relentless public harassment, whether directed at an academic pioneer or a duchess, has real, tangible, and sometimes fatal consequences. Words are not just harmless pixels on a screen or disposable newsprint. They carry weight, they build environments, and sometimes those environments become completely unlivable. Looking at how Meghan Sussex handled this intolerable atmosphere, you really have to give credit where credit is due, because making the choice to step back, distance herself, and pack up to protect her life and her family was probably the single healthiest decision she could have ever made. She looked at a system that seemed intent on picking her apart until there was nothing left, and she said, "No, I am not going to stay here and let this consume me." Removing yourself from a toxic, hostile environment is not running away or quitting. It's an act of profound self-preservation and strength. How many people stay in destructive situations because they feel trapped by expectation? Meghan Sussex chose life. She chose her peace, and she chose to put a geographic and emotional boundary between herself and a media apparatus that seemed completely untamed and relentless. It really makes you wonder about the state of our culture when a person has to literally leave an entire country just to find a breath of safe air and escape non-stop harassment. Nina Myskow recognized that reality on air, acknowledging that Meghan Sussex did the right, necessary thing by creating that distance, even while the very press that drove her away continues to critique her for leaving. It's a bizarre, paradoxical loop where the media attacks someone mercilessly, drives them out, and then attacks them for daring to go. You really have to step back and look at the sheer absurdity of it all, because if you do not see the irony, you are missing the entire picture. The sheer audacity of expecting someone to sit quietly and absorb endless attacks without taking steps to protect their sanity is mind-boggling. Standing up as a bold truth-teller in an industry where almost everyone else is running with the popular hostile narrative is incredibly rare these days. Nina Myskow knew exactly the kind of pushback she would receive for voicing that opinion on national TV. She knew the online trolls would come for her. She knew the traditional press would try to spin her comments. And yet, she said it anyway, because some truths are simply too important to keep quiet. In a media landscape dominated by groupthink, where bashing certain public figures yields easy clicks and high ratings, seeing someone stand tall and demand empathy for Megan Sussex is like a breath of fresh air. It reminds us that there are still commentators out there who value human decency over cheap television drama. We genuinely have to pray for Megan Sussex's continued safety, peace, and protection as she moves forward with her life. Because as we have seen time and time again, the scrutiny does not simply vanish just because you cross an ocean. The persistent obsession with her every move remains a constant shadow, proving that the danger was never just a temporary phase, but a structural habit of modern tabloid culture. Seeing public figures like Nina Myskow call this out directly gives a voice to millions of people around the world who've been watching this unfold with deep concern and outrage. It validates what so many have felt for years, that what happened to Megan Sussex was never normal, never fair, and never acceptable under any standard of basic human compassion. As we process all of this, it really serves as a massive wake-up call for how we consume media and how we participate in public commentary every single day. We cannot keep watching these patterns repeat themselves, watching public figures get pushed to their absolute limits, without asking ourselves what role the audience plays in consuming and fueling that toxicity. Nina Myskow gave us a powerful moment of clarity on live television, breaking through the noise to deliver a bitter but necessary truth about media bias, public harassment, and the absolute necessity of self-preservation. The continuous narrative flows forward directly into the heart of this media dynamic, picking up from the emotional core of that broadcast. When you examine how the Jeremy Vine panel reacted in real time, you could see the sheer discomfort in the room, because discussing the systemic nature of media pylons forces commentators to acknowledge their own industry's role in it. Nina Myskow did not just offer a passing comment, she disrupted the typical narrative framework that daytime television relies on when discussing Megan Sussex. For years, the coverage around the Duchess has been packaged as simple public interest or fair critique, but framing it alongside the severe personal toll seen in cases like Jason Arday shifts the conversation from frivolous celebrity news to a matter of fundamental human well-being and ethics. This shift in perspective is crucial because the mechanics of a modern media campaign rely on volume and repetition. A single negative article or critical television segment might seem harmless in isolation, but when multiplied across hundreds of outlets, digital platforms, and social media feeds daily, it creates an environment of relentless hostility. For Megan Sussex, every nuance from her body language and choice of wardrobe to her charitable endeavors and private family decisions was routinely reframed through a lens of suspicion. Nina Myskow's intervention highlighted that this scale of scrutiny is structurally unsustainable for any individual to bear, regardless of their status or resources. The courage to challenge this dynamic on live television cannot be overstated. Media panels often function on implicit boundaries, where certain consensus views are rarely questioned out of fear of public backlash or industry isolation. By openly validating Megan Sussex's decision to distance herself from the UK press, Myskow served as a necessary reminder that self-preservation and establishing hard boundaries are valid, healthy responses to an unsafe environment. Ultimately, this broadcast moment resonated far beyond the studio because it articulated what many viewers had long observed. The ongoing obsession with Megan Sussex reveals broader patterns regarding how women, particularly women of color in high-profile spaces, are monitored and judged by public institutions. By speaking out clearly and without qualification, Nina Myskow provided a rare moment of accountability on mainstream television, encouraging a broader re-examination of media responsibility and the real-world impact of relentless public scrutiny. Thank you all so much for tuning in to today's breakdown and sharing your time with me. If you appreciate these deep, honest conversations, please take a second to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who needs to hear this perspective today.